Hey everyone, Mr. Becker here, your friendly neighborhood adjustment counselor, reporting live from my current workstation, which is also doubling as my couch. Typically, at this point in the year, myself and the rest of the guidance counselors would be going into senior classrooms to deliver the third and final iteration of the Signs of Suicide curriculum. You might remember getting the first two bits of this information in seventh grade and then freshman year. However, the senior curriculum looks very different because it actually spends more time discussing what mental health looks like and what resources exist for everybody beyond high school, how to access them, and how they might look and feel very different to what you could be used to during your time in high school. Obviously, given everything that's happening, we can't deliver the information in the way that we otherwise typically would have, but we all still agree this is very important information for all of you to have. Not to mention, it's probably worth brushing up on what mental health resources exist for you currently, should you, a friend, or a loved one need additional support given today's day and age. So to begin, here's just the breakdown of the guidance counselors in the high school. At this point, as seniors, the likelihood is you're already very familiar with who your guidance counselor is, and this just serves as a reminder that there are supports out there should you or anybody need them that you're already familiar with, and that we're here for you if you do need anything. In addition to, judging by the picture at the bottom, hopefully this serves as a reminder that just because you can grow facial hair during quarantine doesn't mean that you necessarily should or have to. For those again who I don't know already, you may notice my name at the bottom there doesn't have any letters next to it. That's because I am all of your adjustment counselors. And what is an adjustment counselor, you may ask? Excellent question. I work one on one with students who might be dealing with some of the mental health challenges that we're going to be discussing today. So, an increase in anxiety, stress, depression, many of these things that unfortunately we know are pretty popular and pretty common among students within high school. I'm the one who typically deals one on one with some of those students if they need additional support. So, for those who I have met throughout your time here, please always feel free to reach out to me. And for those who I don't know, just please think of me as an additional support or maybe something a little more intensive that you might not be used to during your time in high school already. I'm here for all of you just in the way that your guidance counselor would, and should you need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. It's probably no surprise that given everything that's happening, the world is feeling especially anxious and stressed and probably more depressed than we have in a long, long time. In addition to that, what I've gathered is a lot of individuals don't really know what to do with some of these increased symptoms in mental health. They don't know what supports exist for them, they don't know how to access them, or maybe they used to know, but since things have changed, they're not really sure what exists. And a lot of people are just kind of left to struggle in their own homes right now. Fortunately, just because things might look very different to what we could have been used to, that doesn't mean that the supports aren't still out there and very effective for anyone who might need it. As we mentioned before, your counselors are all here for you should you need anything. Frankly, I speak to everyone pretty much every day. We all miss you terribly. So if you do need anything, or if you just want to kind of check in and say hi, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Even if we're not the right people to ask these questions to, we can assuredly point you in the right direction and get you connected with whatever support is going to be best for you, both right now and moving forward. Next, for those of you who are in therapy already, you might have noticed that therapy's gone totally digital. There are therapists doing phone calls, they're doing telehealth, they're doing FaceTime. It just kind of hammers home the point again that although we can't have face to face meetings, supports still exist and they are just as effective as they would have been otherwise. Some of these other things on here might not be as familiar to you, or maybe they are familiar and you've heard of them, but you haven't really explored what they are exactly. My recommendation to you, these are all hyperlinked in the PowerPoint that we'll be sending out. I would click through some of these links. I would familiarize yourself with them. I would punch some of these numbers in your phone because chances are, even if you don't need them right now, you very well may need them at some point in the future for yourself or for somebody else. Just to highlight what some of these things are, For those of us who either don't have therapy set up already, or if you have a therapist but you're looking for something additional, maybe a different fit, Interface is a completely free service for all of the residents of Medfield. All that is, you call that number, it's run through the William James College, they take an intake for you, and then within 10 days, they will set you up with an appointment with a therapist and a service provider in our area within about 10 days. It is a remarkable resource for all of our students, for all of the residents of Medfield that we've gotten great feedback from, and it kind of takes the legwork out of what can otherwise be a challenging process. Riverside Community Care is somewhat similar to Interface. It's kind of a catch all for all things mental health related. So they do crisis counseling, they do group counseling, they just have an abundance of resources that could be available to anybody or everyone throughout whatever challenges that they might be facing, mental health or otherwise. Some of these things on the right here, if you've worked with me over the past handful of years, I have definitely harped on what amazing resources all of these are, but in addition, how undersung and I think how underrepresented they might be for people who really might need them. These crisis text lines, these suicide prevention lifelines, Samaritans, which is the Massachusetts Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Lifeline. They're all, at this point, they're all digital. You can call them, you can text them. I believe a handful of them have just online support. The problem is a lot of people only assume that you can use these things in moments of absolute crisis. So when someone or yourself is in imminent danger, that's when you reach out to them. When you absolutely need somebody and you don't know who else to talk to, that's when you should be reaching out to these numbers. While that is absolutely true, that is what they're there for, they serve so much more than just that. We've spoken with a handful of mental health providers and professionals that work with these numbers. And above all else, what they tell us is people will call in just because they kind of want to vent, because they're having a hard day and they don't know who else to talk to, or they need advice and they don't want to be judged, or they don't really know who else to turn to. The point is, these things are wonderful supports for kind of anything that you might need support on. Oftentimes, I will call these numbers or text these numbers with students in my office just to kind of check out what it's like. My advice is familiarize yourself with them now before you need them, because as we all know, especially with teens, it can be very, very hard to access new supports and new resources if you don't already know how it works and what it feels like. So give it a shot. Check out the websites, see how some of these things work, and just kind of file it away in the back of your mind if you or anybody should ever need them. Some additional resources that are existing right now for all of you that I just wanted to point your way, that we've kind of been using as well, are out Metro West right here is an LGBTQ plus organization that does any number of things within the Metro West area. Typically speaking, they have group counseling, they have like fun activities. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all things LGBTQ plus in terms of support. And recently, they've been able to digitize just about everything that they were able to do in person only a couple of weeks ago. So they're still doing groups, they're still doing counseling, they're still doing everything that they might have otherwise been doing, but now you can access it from the comfort of your own home. In addition to this Mental Health America resource guide is something that I think is truly unbelievable, albeit overwhelming, but unbelievable nonetheless if you are looking for additional resources. So if you look here, it really has an endless stream of information. And as I was describing to the other guidance counselors, it's answering questions that I didn't even realize I had. So I highly recommend, if you're curious, if you think you might want additional supports that we haven't gone over, start there and see what might be available to you. Next is this coronavirus anxiety workbook. If you're following the guidance news and updates, which I'll go over in a second, we've actually linked this in there as well. This is another really nice packet of information that can help mitigate some of the additional anxiety, stress, and depression that a lot of us are feeling right now. It's a good resource for worksheets, for activities, for things that can really help make sense of this otherwise chaotic time. Lastly, as well, is the guidance news and updates. You should be getting emails every week from the guidance staff just highlighting some of the things that we're working on, some of the things that might be important for you to read. In that, there's an SEL, social emotional learning roundup, which again just sort of highlights some activities, some things to keep in mind, and some things that you might want to do should you find yourself feeling more stressed or more anxious. But what about next year? This is sort of the primary focus of the senior year SOS curriculum, and I think right now it's probably more pertinent than ever to discuss these things. The truth of the matter is, your age group after graduating high school are facing what's kind of known as a mental health perfect storm. 75% of all mental health disorders begin before age 24, so that's your age group right here. In addition to that, whether you're going to college, to the military, whether you're working, whether you have something else planned, you're soon going to have brand new responsibilities, a new environment, new expectations, and new independence. The truth is, while all of those things are wonderful, and you should be excited for all those things, a lot of students don't really know what to do with those things. They can be overwhelming, they can be stressed, and unfortunately, as we know, we probably haven't gone over enough of what these resources look and feel like at that age group. And so a lot of students don't really know how to access additional help and therefore flounder a little bit in this newfound independence. As a result, these college counseling centers that we speak to report a major increase in serious mental health concerns, and that goes for just beyond college too. I think that over the past handful of years, we found ages 18 to 24 students are really struggling with a lot of things and don't really know how to access supports when they need them. So, what does that look like? Where could someone go for treatment? How does that change? And what situations might cause you to seek out some help? So, I think right now we've already highlighted what treatment and what services can exist for all of you in high school. The good news is a lot of those things still exist in college or beyond high school. Privatized therapy, community mental health centers, that would be the Riverside equivalent that I had pointed out earlier. All of these things are going to exist whether you are going to Dean College right down the road, whether you're studying abroad or working in Timbuktu. Mental health has come a long way over the past handful of years, and therefore, resources exist now in ways that they really might not have even 10, 15 years ago. So, like I said before, community mental health centers, hospital psychiatric outpatient clinics, privatized nonprofit counseling centers, college counseling centers, your dorm RA, your local mental health associations, or even these national suicide prevention helplines or crisis lines that I had pinpointed before. All of these things are going to exist no matter where you are and no matter what time you may need to access them. My advice, however, just like some of these crisis lines, whether it be in September or when you do find yourself in a brand new environment, you should be familiarizing yourself with these resources long before you need them. It's really, really hard if you're in crisis or if your roommate is in crisis or a friend's in crisis. It's awfully hard to then look through your college information booklet to find out, okay, here are the college counseling hours, and here's how I access this, and here are my local mental health resource centers. It's probably best to know how to access these things long before you need it so you can kind of cut out the middleman and make this a much easier process for anybody who's going to need it at some point. My hope is that these resources probably have no importance to you for the rest of your time, whether it be in college or otherwise. Statistically speaking, though, We know that if it's not you, it's probably somebody that you know. We know, again, like I mentioned, the ages of 18 to 24 are really facing some challenges right now. And so while you might be comfortable and you might be thriving at this next stage of life, you might encounter somebody who's going to need some help, and they might look to you to provide some information that they otherwise can't access. In addition to that, I will leave you with a couple of things that I think are definitely worth reading through and watching. This first bit here is the College Guide full-length video to mental health from NAMI. It's a very quick, just 2.5 minute video that really highlights not just a lot of the things that I mentioned, but some other points that you just want to consider and maybe start discussing with your parents before you do embark on this new independence. In addition to that, again put on by NAMI, is this College Guide to Mental Health. I'll be honest with you, this thing is huge. It is 40 something pages. It is a great, great resource of information, but it's massive. Do I recommend reading through all of this? Well, frankly, if you have more time on your hands now than ever, perhaps. But I would recommend opening it, flipping through it a little bit, and again, just knowing what it's there and maybe using it as the beginning of a conversation between you, parents, or loved ones to just make sure that you're confident moving into this next stage of your life should you need anything additional support wise. Lastly, should you have questions, should you want to talk further at any point, do not hesitate to reach out to your guidance counselor or myself. We really are here for you in whatever capacity that we can provide. We know that these are unprecedented times. We know this is hard. We know this is especially hard for seniors. Just because you guys might be graduating or you might be finishing your instruction in a couple of weeks does not mean that we simply stop existing. Whether it be right now because you need something, whether it be 2 weeks from now because something comes up, whether it be next year and you're not really sure who to turn to. Never forget that we're here for you, and never forget that we are a resource that can either help you directly or help connect you with whatever appropriate resources exist for you. So at any point, please reach out for help and know that we're here for you.